everybody, welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to say, major spoiler alert, we are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 4 of the Ahsoka series, and it was a doozy. So if you haven't seen that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disneyplus, watch that, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from episode 4 of the Ahsoka series, it's Jon Jon Rico.
Boy, oh boy, is the force strong with us today, Danny. My God.
I could almost hear you screaming from the other side of the country when you watched that episode.
Oh, I was like, it was pretty much like that.
So before you go off, because I know you're going to, and there's plenty of good things to talk about in this episode, we did say spoiler alert. So if you're watching still, now is your last chance, because there is so much to talk about that it will ruin the rewatch experience or the wow effect.
Going to ruin everything.
But before we get into that, I'm going to jump right into it with the pop culture reference of the week. So we have Huyang repairing the ship on the outside. It's the very beginning of the episode. He's repairing the ship and, just doing stuff. And he gets attacked by another droid. And immediately, the only thing I could think of was, how funny would it be if one of them hits the other and their head just kind of pops up like Rock'em Sock'em Robots? Like, I immediately wanted to see that. I was just like, it would just be like, just a little bit of comedy in there. But I understand that they didn't do that on purpose. But I just thought that would be really funny. And that's the only thing I could think of for the pop culture reference of the week. But what I have to say is, I did love this episode. I do love still that we are following groups, not just, Ahsoka. And I mean, she is the main character. She will always be the main character. It is her series. But I do like that, we're getting little bits and pieces of all the groups, not just, the heroes, but we're also getting the villain groups, just as it's happening. And I really like that. I like kind of, all of these things are happening at the same time. So I like that we're kind of handing off from one group to the other and kind of seeing all of the plates spinning at the same time until they interact. And I really think that's really cool. It's a really cool way to kind of show how many things are actually in motion and how many characters in this series are actually in motion all at the same time. But I mean, there's so many things we're going to get into from this episode. Rico, before that, what were some of your initial impressions of episode 4?
Boy, where do I even start? Really, like, this is Star Wars, like, at its finest, in my opinion. Like when you put Dave Filoni in the reins of characters that he created and stories that are based off of stuff that he originally did in past content that people still love and adore today. Him just being able to build off that, it's just going to be super satisfying no matter what for fans new and old. This had everything that you could possibly want from a Star Wars episode or a movie. You had some pretty wild space stuff happening with the hyperspace ring and Hera's crew and all that. You had amazing lightsaber battles, like 3 of them, I think, maybe. So we had Ahsoka versus the Inquisitor, we had Sabine versus Shin Hati, and then of course Ahsoka versus Baylan Skoll, and all of them were amazing fights. Just a great display of all the different skills of all these different characters, and even kind of in all of these fights kind of pose some questions too, also, that we'll get into later on as well. Kevin Conner's music again continues to be amazing. And
that theme at the very end.
Dude, let me tell you, yeah. And then, also, I want to talk about that amazing ending here in the takeaways. But this episode had everything from laughter to big wow moments to moments where I was genuinely tearing up by the end of this episode. And this was exactly what I was wanting from the show from the start. And boy, oh boy, What episode?
You know what was really cool? I just thought of this now when you were describing all of the different lightsaber battles that we actually got. It was really cool to see kind of the skill level of different people, I guess, in the actual like lightsaber battles, because we
Right.
have, Sabine, who's really very novice, and so you could tell in that fighting style, in that matchup, it was kind of not almost novice versus intermediate. But both of the Ahsoka battles, it was almost like an art form. Like both opponents in that were like, it was a very slow, like to attack, like type of thing, and they were like kind of pacing around, almost circling, and it was all very methodical and stuff like that. So you could really see the contrast of kind of the skill levels, and it was really cool to be able to see that throughout the different lightsaber battles.
Yeah, I think also to kind of counter that, and also agree with you as well. But we also saw the way that Sabine's Mandalorian skills played into her fight this time around with Shin Hati, because now that she had her armor and her actual tool set with her, she could actually balance out that fight a little bit better. So even though at one point when she got freaking like hurled into a tree and she lost both that, and then she had to resort to the lightsaber, right? So I think it was really cool that we got to see a balance of both of her skill sets in this fight, and it made for a much more even fight in the sense. And I also want to talk a little bit about like the different little themes explored, because obviously the big kind of character conflict we hear between Ahsoka and Sabine is the decision to either destroy the map that leads them to Ezra and Thrawn, or to use it and get Ezra, right? So it's basically Ahsoka wanting to stop Thrawn versus Sabine wanting to save Ezra, and obviously that leads into a major conflict later on in the episode. But I really like that we're kind of exploring this different side of Ahsoka, who's kind of she's on a different like mission now that we've seen in the past versions of her. She's always be a lot more cheerful and kind of bubbly, but now she's a little bit more jaded because of all this horrible stuff that's happened to her in her past now. So I think that's interesting, kind of like kind of character moments we're getting with her, like that in that fight with Baylan. She's when she thinks for a moment that Sabine was killed by Shin Hati, she gets pretty dark sidey there.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty interesting. And then as soon as she notices that Sabine is back, she kind of gets back into it, but then that also kind of works to her fault. So like, man, there's really great character moments in these lightsaber battles that like I think feel like only Filoni is really good at doing these kind of things. And man, these cliffhangers for all these characters, like you're gonna talk about later, are so good, so good.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get to some big takeaways?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick us off because you have a very, very big one. So I'm gonna be the lead up to that one. So I have two. The first one and a second one, and I just kind of realized that they're both kind of comparing to the MCU. But what I think is really cool is that we have the X-wing pilot Carson showing up again in this series now. So
love me some Carson Teva.
It's really cool. Now he is basically that thread character that is popping up in every aspect of the Mandoverse. I'm calling it the Mandoverse. I've heard that term before. I'm definitely not coining that term. I'm not taking any credit for that. But I think he's becoming that character where he's just going to pop up, and he is kind of that small common thread throughout all of these series that are connected.
And
it's just and it's just really cool to see that. And as soon as he popped up, I was like, he's in everything. So it was just really cool to see him again, and to have this common character that will always be showing up in everything. The second one is, and I have to say this, how when Infinity War came out, everyone was blaming Star-Lord for throwing a temper tantrum and waking up Thanos out of a trance. Everything that happens from this point forward is all of Sabine's fault. All of it's Sabine's fault.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. She had plenty of time to destroy that star map before it got put back on, before they could figure everything out. She chose not to. She gave it right back. So everything moving forward, all her fault. Rico, what is your big giant takeaway from this episode?
Before I get to that, I do want to talk a little bit about Carson Teva, because I do love that character, and I think this is also the second Rebels character we've seen him interact with now, because we saw in Mando season 3 he was side by side with Zeb.
Yep.
And now of course he's working alongside with Hera. And I really like the seeing those two characters interact because I love Hera a lot from Rebels, so, and I just think that those two characters would get along well together. And then of course the Sabine stuff is just so it's really a testament to how great of a character Baylan Skoll is, because obviously he's such a great way with so few words. I feel like just every time he speaks, he Ray Stevenson himself, he commands the screen, and I just like it really has like this Qui-Gon energy to
Yeah.
him, and oh man, he's just really great to watch, and of course his fighting style is really cool too. Another thing I loved about those lightsaber fights was all the different fighting styles they would display. Like they were switching stances to kind of go with how they wanted. It was very methodical with how they all like approached each other
Yeah.
in the fighting sequences, and I really love that. Um, but yeah, so that whole thing at the end, where of course, S- Sabine kind of reveals herself to be alive in Ahsoka's eyes, and it kind of throws her off, and Baylan knocks her off the cliff, and then we don't really see her again until after all that stuff happens with Sabine. And then, of course, when we wake up, first of all, there's this great transition where it goes from the water into just Ahsoka laying down,
Yeah.
and it's amazing transition. I was like, whoa, that was really cool. And then all of a sudden, I'm starting to see put the puzzles together, and as she stands up, she's revealed to be in the world between worlds, which was first revealed in Rebels. Um, and of course, she was in the world between worlds before in Rebels, of course, with Ezra. Famous scene in the last season with them. But one of the things that she hears when she first wakes up is she hears "Hello, Snips," and that's of course Anakin's nickname for her when they were together as master and apprentice. And then she turns around and boom, there's young Anakin right there. Hayden Christensen with his long hair again, and just like I was wondering how long it would take you to be here or whatever it was, and then boom, it just ends. You're just like, no, that's oh, what? Come on, you're just gonna give us that. But of course, it leads us right into what will probably be an amazing kind of like existential episode next in next week. And but man, to finally see Anakin and Ahsoka live action together on screen is a really special moment in Star Wars, and I was in tears by the end of the episode. I was like, holy crap, they actually did it. I was hoping for it, and I wasn't expecting it this soon. I didn't think we would get Anakin before Thrawn. I think that's probably more my
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, I'm so excited to see these two, the more of these two on screen together in the next episode. Like can't wait.
Yeah. I absolutely loved that part. And I I was mentioning it, like, or alluding to it, I guess, earlier, but like then, it fades to black and we get a Darth Vader
Little
theme.
Vader
We get
theme,
a
which was
little Vader
yeah,
theme.
which
So
means it's gonna mess with her a little bit. I feel like
yeah.
too.
So I mean, there's gonna be a twist. There's gonna be a twist there, and I'm very interested to hear like what's gonna, or to see, not just hear, but to see what's gonna happen. But I mean, just like you were saying last week, music means everything, and like that little tease, that was just a
It
little
means
audio
everything,
tease,
man.
yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
whew. So yeah, I am very excited for the next
But yeah,
episode.
it's moments like that that truly make Star Wars great. Like for all the flaws that people can pick out about it, when you have moments of like that, that's what it's all about for me. Like that,
Yeah,
that was 100%. It's one of my favorite episodes of any Star Wars thing ever.
nice. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. You want to get to some predictions?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick us off with predictions?
All right. So there's really a lot of questions here.
Yeah.
I guess we can kind of go off of the same predictions here because it's all the questions all lead off of the same stuff here.
Right. Right.
One of the first questions I have actually pertains to the Inquisitor Marok, who obviously dies at the hands of Ahsoka. Obviously, the final standoff between them, which was very samurai like, I loved because it's
Right.
reminiscent of Maul and Obi-Wan, and even one of the fights that that Ahsoka had with an Inquisitor in Tales of the Jedi. When she gets that's where she gets her lightsabers actually. But when she hits the final blow on Marok, we see this like green dust emanate from him, and it's almost like the spirit like leaves his body. So it made me wonder if, because the Inquisitors shouldn't be around in this time period because they were programmed by Vader, and I wouldn't imagine that Vader would have had any Inquisitors alive by this time, because he's not even alive anymore. So why
Right.
would there be Inquisitors? So part of me wonders if Morgan Elsbeth, the Night Sister, possibly reanimated an Inquisitor corpse and like was basically like he was just living like that way. So almost kind of like a zombie dark side user, which would have been pretty interesting.
Mhm.
But also just love that it's a character that everyone was just like throwing all these wild theories about, and it was just like, no,
Yeah.
this is clear. This is a character that someone was meant to like look cool killing,
Yeah.
like that, like every other Inquisitor.
That was such a cool scene. That
It
was
was cool.
definitely like out of like a samurai movie scene where he's got the
Oh,
spinning
the way
blade
it was
and he
framed.
just does one slash and he's just
Hmm.
like gaunt. Like,
In the forest and everything. Oh yeah, it's totally like a samurai movie. I love
yeah.
that stuff. And then of course the stuff with Hera and all that. Like there's a lot of stuff that just is left open ended. I'm excited to see carry over into the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really cool. And I mean, we both were talking about cliffhangers, but we got basically three because we have three like big groups of characters that are
Mhm.
happening. So I mean, we have the Ahsoka Anakin uh cliffhanger. We have Sabine and all of the villain crew basically like what happens after they
Where'd
do
they
the
go?
hyper ring. Yeah, like what happens, the hyperspace ring. So that's cliffhanger number 2, and then we have like Hera and Carson and anyone who's still alive that was in X-Wings. I know we
I
saw
think it's just them.
it might just be those two
It
because we
might be just I think
definitely
it's just the ghost and the one X-Wing. So
yeah.
everyone else got wiped out, it looked like.
But we have three big
What a
groups of
moment.
people. Yeah, we have three big groups of people. So we got basically three cliffhangers because we got to figure out what's going to happen with all of them. And I mean, hopefully, we get some more regrouping basically, and
Right.
people can band together again. But yeah,
Got
it's
Huyang out there too still, just out there like
yeah, he's on the planet.
where
Yeah,
my people at?
exactly. Yeah. So he's down there wondering what's going on also. But yeah, I mean, just like you said, there's so many questions, like in a good way. It's not even like I have no idea what's going on. Like, you know what I mean? Like there are some shows that just kind of end and you're like, okay, what's gonna happen? But this is like so many questions in a good way. Like, this is my favorite part. And I've said this in the past about other series and other stuff, but this is my favorite part about shows and about us being able to recap is there are so many things that can happen. And I just can't wait to start reading some theories and to kind of start thinking about what's going to happen before it actually does happen. Because that's like my favorite is just going down rabbit holes of what people are thinking about and talking about already. I can't for the next week. I'm going to be so happy just like looking on Reddit, going through TikTok, like and YouTube and all that. And I just can't wait. That's my favorite part of this stuff.
Yeah, and we've seen pretty much all of the trailer footage now at this point,
Yeah.
aside from the shots of Thrawn. So we know that he's coming very soon. I would imagine with the fact that Sabine and all them have now made the jump in the hyperspace ring, we're gonna see where they end up, and then I was gonna say I wonder who they run into first, Ezra or Thrawn. Like if they somehow just ran into Ezra first in a way, but I would imagine they're gonna run into Thrawn first because that's who they were looking for.
Right.
So that's obviously like I'm just waiting for that Thrawn reveal, and I want to hear Lars Mikkelsen in live action speaking in the Thrawn voice. I really can't wait for that. I have to imagine that Hera and Carson are probably going to meet up with Huyang just because they're like right outside that area, and that they were going out there to help him anyway. So we'll kind of get like them grouping up and then like trying to figure out where Ahsoka and Sabine are. So that's gonna be, and then whenever I have to imagine the whole next episode will be Ahsoka just in the world between worlds with Anakin,
Right.
and then it'll end with her getting out and then just regrouping with everybody. I think that would say my prediction would just be that's how it would be like the next episode will kind of play out. It's
Right.
just kind of seeing those whole things, but I think it's gonna be a really fun time no matter what.
Oh,
Just just the
absolutely.
conversations between Anakin and Ahsoka is gonna be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am very excited to see that. I mean, we could have Anakin there. We could have Obi-Wan show up there too. Like we could have
Still
this
hoping for
guy.
a
We
Rex
could have
cameo.
yeah. I mean, we could have Qui-Gon show up for all we know. But I mean, it'd be really cool. I can't wait. Even if it's just those two, I'd be super happy. But like
I would like if they did the vocal lines thing from the world between world like they did in Rebels. When Ezra first goes through the portal, goes in there, he hears all of these lines from not just past Star Wars lines, but future, like in his timeline, the future. Like he was
right,
hearing
right,
stuff from Rey, and he was hearing stuff from old Obi-Wan, but like a year but after he was like in that timeline. So it's a cool place because it's a place where it's like all time and space and Star Wars, but it's not like time traveling. It's just an area where everything ties together in one spot. So it's a cool reminder that everything does exist in one place. And so I'm really excited to explore more of the world between worlds in live action.
So what you're saying is we can compare this to the MCU, and it's
No.
the void where He
No.
Who Remains is,
No.
where he can see everything for the
No.
timeline,
No.
and it's all just a circle. And
No.
yeah.
No.
What if they pop up in the MCU universe?
Link to the Marvel universe from the Star Wars universe. We then cut to Earth. Tony Stark.
Which?
Look, I avoided it the entire episode. I know it's not realistic. I can't wait for somebody to edit it. And that's why I'm wearing my Rocket and Groot shirt. I can't wait to see someone on the internet edit it where they jump through the hyperspace loop or ring and they pop up somewhere in the Guardians of the Galaxy or there. It's gonna happen. There's an edit, I'm sure, already out there. And I cannot wait to find it. So if you find it, comment the link below. But I just can't wait to see that. I know it's not realistic. I just think it's hilarious, and I cannot wait for a fan edit. But anyway, as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 4? What did you think of that crazy reveal and live action Anakin and Ahsoka finally? Like the first time we've ever seen that. Live action Anakin and Ahsoka talking in the world between worlds. Awesome. And what do you think is going to happen in the next episode? Will we see Thrawn that soon? Or is it going to be more like, we're going to be hearing about him and then all of a sudden we get him in the finale type of thing? They could hold off. Those scenes could just be from the finale. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody.
Popping Off presents That Recap Show.